Hey everybody, it's Lubsy. So it's been about 2 weeks since the Peacemaker finale aired, and I just wanted to give my my thoughts about how the series went. And I have been putting that off for about 2 weeks, since the finale aired, because I didn't really want to make this video, but I just want to get my opinion out there because I have one. So, yeah. This is not a traditional video. This is just a yap session, basically. I'm just going to be talking about what happened in the season and mainly the finale and what I think happened there. So, crinkle a bag and pretend you have chips, because here we go. Episode 1, I think, was a pretty good, intro to the season. Basically, Chris wakes up because Eagly has to go out on a walk, so he takes him to the TARDIS room or whatever, the QUC, as he calls it. And he sees a discount xenomorph and another room of Peacemaker helmets. So he goes into that universe to try to check it out, and then he sees his dad is still alive. But he leaves, and he tries his best to ignore the whole thing that happened and tries to be the best hero he can and be the best Chris he can in his universe. So he tries to join the Justice Gang. He completely fucks up the interview, and his friends aren't doing the best either. Adebayo is running a failed spy agency. Adrian is still working his dead-end job. Harcourt is getting turned down by every national security agency, and so she is a ball full of rage and gets into bar fights with everybody. Somehow the only one who is actually doing pretty good is Economos, because he still has his job at Argus working for the new director, Rick Flag's dad. Oh, and Myrn is still dead. So Chris goes to Harcourt's house to try to talk to her, and they bring up something that happened on a boat cruise, and it's revealed in episode 8 that it was a very passionate kiss. And Chris wants to know if it meant anything, and she doesn't say anything until the end. So Chris is feeling bad. So he just starts smoking a bunch of weed and, as he puts it, drowning his sorrows in flesh. And Rick Flag is having Economos monitor this whole thing happening because Chris opens up the TARDIS room, which is giving off a lot of energy, and Rick Flag wants to use that. So Chris just leaves and lets everybody do their thing. And he goes into that other dimension he saw, where he found out that not only is his dad still alive, but he's actually really nice, and also his brother is still alive and seemingly really nice. So the dad, Augie, and the brother, Keith, and Chris all talk about their past and stuff, just like a reminiscing about the good old days type of thing. And then Chris goes into his room and sees his whole life there. But then he sees the other Chris, the one that's actually from that universe, and they get into a fight, and he accidentally kills that other Chris. And so the whole season is... Sorry. The whole season is Chris going between both universes and living as both Chris's until about episode 6, where the big reveal is that the alternate universe that Chris found was actually Earth X, which, if you're familiar with the comics or the Arrowverse, is the universe where the Nazis won World War II, and there's variants of all the characters, all the superheroes that are actually evil. And so I was hyped to see how they got out of this one in episodes 7 and 8. And it's episodes 7 and 8 that we're going to be talking about the most in this video. So episode 7 is everybody realizing where they are and trying to get out. Like, Chris realizes all of the red flags that he missed about this universe. And then him and the standard Harcourt try to escape Argus and the Earth X version of Harcourt. They both get surrounded by the cops, but then Augie, who is called Blue Dragon and not White Dragon in this universe, and Keith blow all of them up, and then Augie says, "Come with me if you want to live." That's a good Terminator callback. And then they find Economos tied up, and then they figure out that this version of Augie is really nice and not even close to what White Dragon was. And we find out that he's not actually part of the whole, like, world Nazi thing, and is just trying to live how he can. And everyone on Twitter got annoying about it, saying, like, oh, he should have done more. And I'm like, realistically, what are you doing against an evil version of Superman? And then Adrian, Vigilante, meets another version of himself who is, like, just as insane as he is, but he has a reason to fight, and he is part of the resistance. I don't know if he's, like, the leader or something, but he's there, and he's fighting the good fight against those, against the Earth X Nazis. And then meanwhile, Ads is running for her life because all the racist townspeople were talking, like, saying one got out, and then now she's running, and then she gets saved by a judo master who shocks them all in the swimming pool. And then they bond over Scrabble and Cheetos, and then they meet up with the two vigilantes, and then they try to save Chris, and then end up killing Blue Dragon because they thought he was White Dragon, or like White Dragon. And then it's an all-out fight between the cops and the 11th Street Kids, as they call themselves, and then Keith is there and tries to beat the shit out of them, and then he gets mauled by Eagly and attacked by the team, and then Chris has to stop them fighting, and he gets really emotional, and it's a really heartfelt scene where he just decides that he's what's wrong, and I kind of related to that. Then he turns himself in, gives Rick Flag the portal device, and then that episode ends. And then the end of the episode teases Keith potentially coming back for revenge. And I'm hyped for episode 8. So nothing happens in episode 8. Okay, that was me intentionally being facetious, but it felt like nothing happened in episode 8. So basically, Chris is in jail feeling bad about himself, and then Ads and Vigilante have to, like, get him out. Meanwhile, Harcourt, Economos, and then a few other people, including one of the Lex Luthor guys from Superman. By the way, he also makes an appearance in this show, Lex Luthor does. But anyways, everyone's at Argus, and they have to look through all the doors in the TARDIS room to see if one is, like, habitable. And Rick Flag wants to do this because he wants to build a metahuman prison in case Arkham and Blackgate and Belle Reve all don't work anymore and all the criminals get out. And this would be a decent concept for an episode if I didn't have that voice in the back of my head asking, where the fuck is Keith? Like, from my understanding, the entire season was about Chris reuniting with Keith, but then Keith being, like, part of this racist Nazi regime in Earth X, and Chris having to confront this version of his brother that's gone down this bad path. But instead, the producers were like, nah, let's not have Chris do anything. let's just have him sulk in the corner while everybody else does whatever they're doing. Like, instead of focusing on what should have been focused on, like Keith and Chris, they focus on, like, Harcourt and Chris, or Harcourt and Economos, like, grappling the fact that Argus isn't that good, which they already knew. Ads and her wife have this, like, emotional breakup scene. There's something with this cyborg chick that works for Flag. There's that bird blindness guy that Tim Meadows played. Merle Dixon from The Walking Dead showed up as this crazy eagle guy. Oh, Eagly was the primal eagle that Merle was hunting down or something, and we never addressed that again. Lex Luthor says twink in his episode. I'm not sure. And I think all of these could be like decent, like B, C, and D plots, but the A plot was supposed to be Chris realizing his place was here and not Earth X by confronting his brother. And I'm sorry to say that didn't happen. He just, like, sits there in a hotel room, and then everyone tries to make him feel better, which is a decent scene on its own, but there should have been that final confrontation between Chris and Keith, and it didn't happen. Instead, what happened is a montage of the different doors that got opened, and then another music scene where it was the Chris and Harcourt kiss, and then another music scene where it was another boat cruise, and it was just Chris and Harcourt, and I think the rest of the team, because all of the team started another group called Checkmate, and then they added Judo Master and Bird Blindness guy and the cyborg chick, and it was all to the Peacemaker theme song. And it was all pretty good. It was a decent. I said before, it's a decent scene on its own, but I just don't like that that was the whole episode. It was just all set up for future shit and not paying off the stuff that they introduced originally. Like, Earth X is never getting revisited again unless they do like a vigilante spin-off series of this, or if that's what the next Superman is going to be about. But it probably isn't. It's probably going to be about that whole sanctuary prison planet that Rick Flag is building. And I even forgot to mention this in the after credits scene of the show. Peacemaker gets captured by Rick Flag and put on Salvation. I kept saying Sanctuary because that's the thing in The Walking Dead, but it's called Salvation, and it's a giant planet that's just like Earth, but it's filled with monsters or something. And according to James Gunn, that's gonna be basically it for Peacemaker. Like, he's not planning on revisiting the character for a while. At least that's what I'm hearing. Like, I'm hearing rumors that the next show is going to be about this Checkmate thing, which is apparently a thing in the comics. I don't know. And if the goal of that show is to, get Chris back, and then that leads to Peacemaker Season 3, that would actually be something I would be on board with. Like, I don't want to see James Gunn's DCU fail by any means. I have seen Zack Snyder's DCEU fail, and another failure is something that DC desperately doesn't need. And we got a success with Superman. I think that's one of the best superhero movies we've seen in quite a while. And I wanted to see Peacemaker go through that as well, because I liked season 1 and I wanted to see season 2 be good. And it was good. I liked the parts where it was good, which was a lot of it. But the ending they picked is like them playing through Sonic Adventure and not going through the final story segment with perfect chaos, and instead ending the whole entire game with the Big the Cat fishing segment. That's what episode 8 was to me. It was the Big the Cat segment. I honestly didn't expect I'd have this much to say about this episode. I mean, originally, I thought I'd have way more to say, but actually going to film this, I just felt completely empty. Like, I stared into the abyss, and it looked like the Peacemaker Season 2 finale. And that's about the second time I've used that stared into the abyss quote wrong. Like, I already said this before on like Twitter and stuff, but how much cooler would it have been if the finale was Keith going through the portal of that TARDIS room and bringing a bunch of Earth X metahumans to Earth to exact revenge on Chris for killing his version of Chris and causing the death of his version of Augie. And the entire series would culminate in the confrontation between the two brothers, and Chris would throw up the Ozzy like devil horns and say, "You know what this means, Keith? It means rock and roll. That's what you taught me." And then Keith, realizing the error of his ways and joining the fight with the eventual Checkpoint team. And then they'd beat the Earth X metas and then close all the portals to Earth X, cementing that Chris's home is here, and by extension, Keith would also have a place here and be able to redeem himself for the stuff he's done. And then any of the cameos that James Gunn like pretended to tease online would be like the Earth X versions of like characters we've seen before, but it wouldn't technically be them. It would be their like evil Nazi doppelgangers. And then we could have like Keith potentially joining Checkmate, or at least his foot would be in the door while he's in prison or something. And then we can have that whole happy-go-lucky scene about everybody like creating Checkmate and everything. Like, that would make the whole series seem like a complete and finished thing. But right now, it just feels like just a bunch of stuff meant to tease other stuff and not like a fully coherent story. It's like I said, playing Sonic Adventure without playing the final thing with Supersonic. And just ending with Big the Cat. And I think the reason why I don't want to talk about this anymore is because it's just not fun to talk about nothing happening. Like, I like to do what I like to do. I like to make the videos I like to make because I think they're fun. And the finale of Peacemaker was not fun compared to the rest of the season. Like, I had a blast with the show up until the finale. But the finale just, like, kind of soured the whole experience for me and made it feel like not as good as it actually is. And honestly, that's all I got for this. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to me ramble for a bit. Feel free to like, feel free to leave a comment, feel free to Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of this, or if you want to see more of the stuff I actually put effort into. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.